It doesn't affect you. One kid said to me, "Oh, I smoke pot because it doesn't do anything to you." I looked at him and said, "Well, then what the hell do you smoke it for? You know damn well it does something for you, or does something to you." In fact, if you believe that pot doesn't do anything to you, let's give, the next time you're ready to have surgery, give your surgeon a bowl. Tell him to light up. And we'll see how quickly you change your mind about whether or not marijuana affects. Or give it to your pilot. You know, hey, you're going to take this plane up here, have a joint. I bet you change your mind in one quick hurry. And here's the one that I hear a lot from kids. I heard a lot from kids. Marijuana is natural. Right? You know what my response to that is? So are rattlesnakes. Rattlesnake. They're perfectly natural. Can they bite you? Yeah. So I wouldn't kiss one in the mouth. All right? The notion that something is natural and therefore not harmful is, matches in silliness to all kinds of things that we say. Everyone does it. Everybody's smoking pot. Well, Monitoring the Future has been studying teen use for the last 40 years. Here are the statistics in 2010 for kids who smoked pot. The question was, how many of you smoked pot last month? So they ask it, ever, last year, last month, nearly every day. This was the answers for last month. 8th graders, 10th graders, 12th graders. Here's what the stats say. In 8th grade, how many kids smoked pot last month? 8%. In 10th grade, 16.7%. And in 12th grade, 21.4%. Now, we're alarmed by those numbers because they're more than zero. But the truth is that not everybody's doing it, because you know what we always forget when we say that 21% are smoking pot in senior year last month? You know what that means? 79% didn't. That 79% didn't smoke pot last month. Roughly the statistics that have persisted over time for daily marijuana users, what do you suppose that is? What percentage of kids use marijuana every day? 12th grade. 15 or 50? 6. About 6%, 5-6%. How many kids in 12th grade drink alcohol every day? About 5%. So it's a small percentage are creating an illusion of the amount that's going on. If you look at those numbers, right? Why do kids drink? Last question. You ready? And the answer that we've been told is peer pressure, right? It's been the knee-jerk response. Why do kids drink? Peer pressure. Even if you ask kids, they'll tell you it's peer pressure. But if you ask them who pressured you, they can't answer that. Because, well, let me ask you. There are a couple of exceptions here. High school athletes, they don't count. Fraternities, they don't count. How many of you, when you were in middle school or just getting started, how many of you were pressured to drink or drunk? Pressured. I mean someone came up to you and said, here, and if you refused, they kept it up. How many of you drank because you wanted to fit in? You wanted to be one of the crowd. You wanted to belong. You didn't want to be left out. You wanted to be thought of as cool or whatever, right? That's the main motive. It's pure acceptance, which is as human a motive as I can think of. You know? Why does a kid drink? Because he wants people to like him. He wants to fit in. He wants to belong. Some people think that's the meaning of life, is to connect, right? They want to connect. When you ask, why do kids use drugs other than alcohol, you know the answers you hear? It all depends on the language you use. I wanted to belong to this group. I wanted to connect with my peers. I wanted to test the limits. I wanted to push the envelope. I wanted to take a risk. There's nothing wrong with those, is there? As motives, is there? Oh, we don't want any risk takers in the world. Well, we better have some risk takers in the world, or else we'd all be standing in Portugal wondering if we were going to fall off if we sailed too far. Right? So most of the time when you look at the motives that kids have for using drugs, there's nothing wrong with a motive. Sometimes those motives are profoundly human. Sometimes they're necessary to growth, aren't they? That we want our kids to test their power, right? To test their limits. And as parents, we're going to try to keep the rules, right? And that's the fight, right? Their job is to test the limits, and our job is to make sure they keep them. That's the name, that's the fight. That's called growing up, right? The problem isn't why they use. The problem is the risk they take when they use. Some of these drugs are taking serious risks. They're taking, anyone who uses a drug is taking a risk, aren't they? Alcohol doesn't just kill alcoholics. I've been to the funerals of too many 16-year-olds who are dead because of alcohol. And those kids weren't alcoholics. But they had something to drink, got in the car, and bash. Or they got in the car with somebody else who was drinking, and bash. So it's a serious drug, and it is a risk to use it, and that's what we have to begin suggesting to kids. And here's what we've ended up doing. We've ended up trying to teach them to just say no, right? Unfortunately, they're trying to say no to a part of themselves that just said yes, right? It isn't going to work. On the basis of that, we have invented what's called peer resistance education. Look at the research. It has been a colossal failure. Peer resistance education. The just say no approach. It's a colossal failure. In the meantime, we've also demonized a lot of 12-year-olds, right? Because some evil little bastard trying to get your 12-year-old drunk out there, right? And so you have to be suspicious about his friends and who they are. Those kids want to be each other's friends. They don't want to press each other to drink. They don't want to push each other to drink. They want to fit in. If we're going to effectively deal with the problem of teen use, we better find ways of helping them get what they want without taking the risks, right? So by the end of high school, it's not even about acceptance anymore. By the end of high school, you knew who your group was, didn't you? You didn't have to find a group. You already knew what your group was. So by the end of high school, what's this stuff about? It's about bonding. It's about intense celebrating. The motive, if we don't teach kids how to get the motives that they're after without taking the risk, then we're going to fail in the process of alcohol and drug education. There's nothing wrong with the motivation. Okay? Something wrong with how they go about trying to get it. So that's pretty much the story, at least in terms of the myths and misconceptions. This topic is so full. We'll never be able to treat successfully addiction until we have accurate notions of what alcohol and drugs are and what they're not, okay? What addicts are and what they're not, okay? That alcoholism, drug addiction is a primary disease, that the motives kids have for using are completely human and understandable motives. The method we might not agree with, okay? That marijuana is not an innocuous drug, it is a serious drug, and that's the shift that has to start to occur. You're never going to solve this problem by getting an NFL linebacker to stand in front of a group of 500 kids and tell them not to drink. They'll think he was wonderful. And on the way out, they'll say, "Where's a party this weekend?" But they'll think he was wonderful in the meantime. It's going to take a culture-wide systematic approach. It's got to come from all levels of society, not just parents, not just cops. It's got to come from your history teacher. It's got to come from your coach. It's got to come on billboards. It's got to come in all kinds of messages. The end. Now you can clap if you feel like it. How about some questions? What do we have in the way of questions?